Happy Publishing Day.
I know. Can you believe it?
I can believe it. And happy number one new release, Personal Transformation and
I
Spirituality.
No, I just saw that it was sitting next to Brene Brown's Daring Greatly.
Those are good neighbors. You
Uh-huh.
saw that. Congratulations. That's amazing. It's a pretty good start to a day.
Yeah.
Oh, and
And just, thank you. A lot of this magic is happening because of you. It's funny because you are the only one who has the hardcover
I
book
know.
at this moment.
I got into publishing so I can hold the baby first.
Oh,
Truth be told, that's why became a publisher.
and
Uh,
my phone died, so I don't even have it on my.
oh, you'll get it. You'll get it. Um, let's just dive in because you're living the moment so many people dream of. And I want to share a little bit of that and celebrate you and share about your book for everybody who's watching and listening. And then we'll go from there. Sound groovy?
Great.
All right.
Groovy. Yeah.
Um,
My mind is mush. So if I don't speak in
I
English
will add your
words,
mind. That's all right. We'll smush together. Um, so let's start just with this. I know what the book is about. You know what the book is about. Um, let's start with what's the inspiration for the book? What is the book about in just the tiniest scoop? And who needs to read this? I'll remind you those if you need it.
yeah. Well, I'll start. The inspiration of the book has been something I've been carrying for a while, at least 5 years since I finished walking 2 continents. I didn't think while I was walking from Bangkok to Barcelona over 3.5 years that I was going to write a book because I was so busy walking. But then after we came back, I knew something was going to come from it. And then the pandemic happened and I changed careers and we had a documentary and then I did that book first, Fierce Awakenings. And then and it came like that. And now it was just time. It's time for this one. It's the 50th year anniversary of finishing the walk. The documentary is out of the film festival circuit. So it seems very complimentary to have this book telling different stories with different points of view. Um,
Yeah. Great.
yeah, that's the inspiration. And then the book is basically about the journey between fear and courage. That it's not a straight line from fear to courage. And I always thought it was. I always thought you could just flip a switch and one moment you're fearless and another moment you're fearful or you're cowardly or you're courageous. And what a slow walk across 2 continents taught me is that there is quite a lot of other things in the middle of that. There's all the feels, right? And we ignore the feels, or I've ignored the feels because nobody ever taught me how to deal with emotions. So I kind of just shoved them all down and then lifted this facade of courage to do everything I've ever done in life. So the book looks at that. And I call them these emotional stepping stones that we walk through to go from fear to courage. And I think that's going to help a lot of women who are overachievers. Let's just call them that, right? Like the people like me who've climbed every mountain, or not literally Everest.
Literally and or metaphorically. Yep.
Right, right. And we've done the careers, we've done the life things that we've set out to do. We've achieved big goals. And then what? Like we still are not feeling the most satisfied. And I think, I don't know, I get really lost in the concept that courage is the only way forward sometimes, right? Like, yeah, sometimes it is, but it's not always. So I think that's what this book sort of shows is that we can hang out on those stepping stones for a little while until we have some more clarity about the choice we want to make. We don't need to impulsively choose courage as a solution to every insecurity that comes up.
Mhm.
I think that's been kind of revolutionary and and eye-opening for me to understand that just in these last 5 months, right? I didn't set out thinking I knew that.
Right. So that's actually a really cool transition from my perspective. I've been working with you not only on this book, but the previous book, and I've gotten to learn your story in different ways. Um, I love about this book that you're sharing parts of your travel adventure and that experience. And so my constant wanderlust is satiated and excited by being on the journey with you. And then how you manage to weave together insights that you've had on the trip and since the trip that are applicable for all the rest of us who have no intention of taking a similar trip, but would like the lessons that you gained along the way. But I want to hear, maybe even personally, I want to hear the transformation that you've had while writing the book. Because I remember that you came in with one vision, and even this time last year when we were on writers retreat together in Vermont, I knew that this book was brewing, but I didn't know that this book, I knew a story was brewing, but I didn't know this book in this formation was brewing. And I don't even think in February you knew, right? That this version is so fresh and recent. So both for your benefit for the future, posterity, for anybody who is in the writing process or has dreams and aspirations of writing, and for me personally, I would just love to hear more of your high speed chase of a publishing deadline.
Yeah,
Let's not tell anyone actually how fast you did it, because I don't recommend that anyone publish at breakneck speed. But
no.
Jenn, of course, overachiever that she may be, occasional overachiever, went about this at high speed. But let's just look at maybe some of the places or iterations that took place in the discovering of this particular story.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly always a journey, right? And I think that's something to always be aware of, is that you don't really know always what's coming until you sit down and write it. And I started thinking about this book years ago when I had cork boards filled with little stick-it notes and notebooks filled with ideas. And I had started writing it over the pandemic, and it never really went anywhere. I couldn't really I was still too close to know what the lesson was. And then I didn't know what the lesson was either, right? I didn't really know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's a parallel story, because the documentary very much focuses on the kindnesses that we happened upon in the walk, extraordinary kindness. And this is now like, yeah, but there's kindness in the world, but there's also moments of fear and doubt and moments of courage. And I knew coming off the Fierce Awakenings book that courage and confidence go together. But the idea that fear and courage and something else is in the middle there really started bubbling up. But you've seen it. The first draft was shitty first draft. Like, in all honesty, I should have never sent that first draft out. Like, it was so
But
shitty.
really, are you sure though?
No.
I think it's a gold ring of shitty first drafts.
Yeah. Okay. It's a gold
Right?
ring of shitty first drafts.
That's
It so was.
it accomplishes the goal, which for the shitty first draft not to be shitty is not the objective,
Right.
right?
Totally.
Um,
Like, I
and
get that
I have
intellectually.
I know, and none of us get it emotionally, which is why I still have a job, because I get to remind people how bad your first draft should
Right.
be. Because if you didn't feel comfortable to share it with me, then where would we be, right?
Right.
So
It wouldn't be here. And that was it. It was we had a deadline to publish this in June. Like, whatever was going to happen in February, March kind of had to happen.
yeah.
and and then I really have a lot of gratitude for you, because you said that one line that just dared me greatly, to use
What
the Brene Brown, is
what did I
I
tell
think
you?
you could do better during the developmental edit. And I'm like, oh, sure, I know I can.
I see you and I raise you and I double dog dare
And
you.
I double dog dare
Right.
myself even, right? Like, thank you for laying the gauntlet down, because honestly, if that second draft had passed, I don't think I would feel very confident about wanting to share it. And then literally right after that, it was, all right, Jen, really, what are you trying to say here? Like, just kind of break it down a little bit. Like, how I'm trying to tell two things. I'm trying to use this
Yeah.
walk that nobody's ever going to go on
Hallelujah.
and find experiences that are universal. Like, most women know what sexual harassment feels like. Most of us have experienced grief and sadness, right? Most of us have experienced a moment of awe where we can see all the choices that we've made and how all those choices led to one other moment. So kind of distilling 3.5 years of experiences down into these 7 core examples,
Universal
that's
examples, right? Yeah.
universal examples that I hope people can see a little bit of themselves in,
Yeah.
even if they're not in the middle of Turkey or Thailand or wherever, but
Yeah.
that doesn't matter.
Well,
You know,
and that's the beauty of it, is that um that each of us has incredibly unique experiences, uh experiences of this very common, universally experienced life. And no, my sexual harassment won't happen by a tunnel in Turkey,
right.
but it will happen. And my grief may not happen. And those moments that you touch on so beautifully are uniquely yours. And at the same time, speaking of fear and courage, the spider that crawls up my arm. Um, and you set yourself an incredible gauntlet of, how do I take this incredibly personal, no one else will ever do this experience, and make it universally accessible, and bring something of value. So you did an incredibly challenging task, and did it so gracefully. Um, the the developmental edit team and I have now read the book multiple times, and each time we read it, it was a different book, which was so cool. Um,
Thank you for your patience on that
yeah, of
self-discovery
course. Thank you for
process.
making them different books. Um, it and we walked, there was a whole nother digestive journey. Um, and I'm having this conversation with you, like I said, to commemorate this moment, the accomplishment of the walk, the lessons learned, the drafting of the manuscript, the publishing of the book. Um, a year, 5, 10 years from now, this will be another one of those milestones. And recording this conversation is going to help you remember this moment, but
Yeah.
also for all the people who maybe are somewhere in the in between, or for any of those days where we find ourselves there, how do we and when do we move with grace through that? I loved what you said at the beginning, which is like, sometimes we feel like we're supposed to just blaze, right? The right choice is the fastest choice. And that's doesn't seem especially courageous to me, right? And
Mhm.
sitting with discomfort and making intentional choices uh, feels a lot less glamorous, a lot more uncomfortable, and yet, in so many occasions that I can think of it in my own life, the much better path, right? So, um,
It's, in between the second and third draft, I told you this and I told my dad this, but I was up in like emotional muck. Like, it was the most uncomfortable feeling. Because I don't usually let myself linger in those really sour places or soft places, right? It's so vulnerable to be with grief, right? And so vulnerable to be with that rage of something. And it was literally like, oh my God, and I think it was between the first and the second draft where I'm like, you are sitting with this. Like, you can only write yourself through this, but you are going to experience this again because you didn't really do it the first time. So just do it. And then it was really hard. It was really uncomfortable. And I told my dad about it. I said, Dad, I'm in this pond of like emotional muck in my mind and my heart. Like, I don't even know what I'm writing. I don't even know. And he gave this image that just carried me through the rest of that draft was, okay, you're in a pond, but imagine that there's trees around this. It's just a pond and there are trees there and there are these branches kind of reaching down into the pond that you're slip sliding in. All you have to do is grab for the next branch and you'll eventually pull yourself to shore. So each branch became an emotion that I could hold on to until I was ready to reach the next branch. And it was an image that just sort of carried me through the rest of that. And then literally the third revision, what this is, I think I sent it to you at like 4 o'clock in the morning after multiple nights of rewriting it. And literally I sent it to you with like, just, just take it, just do what you will with it and let it leave me, like, let it leave me. And it was just such, I thought it was going to be this spectacular moment with champagne corks and like, bubbly coming out of everywhere. And it was, it was the complete opposite. It was, but in that last revision, I literally just put on some really nice music and I just kind of let it all move through me. And I just gave it to you like that. Like I said, here, Sierra, here, do what you want with it now.
I think that's a really important detail for so many people to keep in mind. I speak to women all the time, aspiring authors of all genders, thinking, and I hear all the time, I'm not ready to tell a story. Or they come in saying like, yeah, I've done the work and I'm all healed. Sometimes even in the same breath, right? I'm not ready and I'm done. And they're both wrong. Both of those self-assessments are misplaced in that when we do the writing, we discover another level, another layer of any and all experience that we did not know was there. But I guarantee you, it's always there. You will go through all of it again in another way. You will be healed to another level, but it's not, running through the poppy field healing. It is, through the deep, dark woods healing. And for the people who say, I'm not ready, no, you're not ready because you haven't walked through the woods. You haven't written your draft. I haven't finished healing this process. No, but the writing of the story is that next level. And so a lot of people are waiting to start the process that in fact is, I always think of it as the accelerant of the healing process. So it's interesting that you bring that up.
I'm going to coin the title of your newest book, By the Light of the Moon. I think when you're doing a book that's nonfiction, memoir, really intimately personal, I think the image of writing by the light of the moon is a stronger image than writing by the light of the sun. And reading those chapters of this fantastic new book that you've all put out, collaborative book, it very much felt like, and just because I wrote so much of it late at night, like I felt like I was stronger and more vibrant in the writing by the light of the moon than I was in the writing in pure daylight, in the midday sun. So whatever that works, for somebody, because I think that's figuratively, that's what you're doing. You're using this emotional journey to create a sunlit path forward.
And we don't have the answers. We don't know. We start the book and we're like, I think I know. And guess what? I am wrong. And that's wonderful. I still discover the way forward, but it's not the way that I thought it was. And it's not even leading me to where I thought I was going, but I love where I ended up and how I got here. And I'm so glad that I didn't stick to my original path.
Well, it's that, but it's also like, well, who's to say that? I don't think of this book as the end of my path at all, right? I don't know what other things are going to come out from this book. I don't know what other conversations I'm going to have that's going to lead me somewhere else. And coming all the way through this, I'm like, yes, this is my first solo book. It's not the first time my name has been on something. So I have a different perspective of it, but it's like, yeah, this is just going to be the one that gets me to the next, whatever the next one is, or whatever the next conversation is,
Well,
or
and you've heard me say that your book's not about you anymore.
no. And that's
Definitely
it.
been about you for a while, but now
It's
it's not
somebody
the
else.
end at all. It's
Yeah.
day one. This is step one for people. Um, and that brings us back to your readers. I know you've had some early readers and gotten some blurbs. I know that
Mhm.
you work with women all the time. And so I want to bring it back to, because you said who needs this book, but who needs the book when they pick it up, and who are they as a result? Not that they're fundamentally different, but what do they know, or what are they able to do differently as a result of reading what you've shared with the world?
I do, and it is written with love for women at midlife intersections. And because I feel like our generation, I'm 52, and I feel like many of my friends who I grew up with, like we all grew up with this sort of just put your big girl panties on and get out there and do your great shit in the world. And now there's a lot of figuring out how to satisfy ourselves because we've done that already. Like, how many marathons do I need to run to feel satisfied? How, like, I walked 2 continents, super satisfying. Like, what am I going to do now? I wrote a book. Okay, super satisfying, right? So why does everything have to be a mountain? So I think this speaks to that of the you and there's illustrations in the books and there's worksheets and there are journaling prompts. So as much as my story laid out in one way, the questions really provide, I thought the questions were pretty good for journaling prompts. And if people take just 5 minutes to think of an answer to that question, I think it will move a needle a little bit. But it's also the invitation to do some of the work, right? Like the transformation doesn't just happen because you wish it. It's
Are you
you
sure? Are you sure? I really think I'm
my
just gonna,
case.
gonna look at that. Everything I dreamed for. Damn, I want my money back.
Me too. But I wish it was that easy. But I think there's and I'm not even saying that you have to go into shadows and go explore the depths of your soul. It is Cancer season, and that might be an invitation because this is a perfect season to do that in. But it's just a matter of taking a mindful moment and saying, okay, this is 5 choices that got me to this moment. And just acknowledging that you made that choice and that it led to something else, right? I think we don't spend enough time looking back. So that's what I hope the book offers is a forced pause on our busy highway of life to just say, wow, I am really going to sit in this question. And me saying, I actually sat in the mud of all this for a long while on deadline to try to make sense of it, right? And I'm really looking forward to having the book and reading it this summer too, and just sitting in a quiet space under a tree and saying, wow, I never really actually thought about that question. I mean, I asked myself questions in that book that I didn't know I needed an answer to. And I think I will find a different answer when I sit down and do the work. And that's what I think many women need that break, just to say, before we race into our next big adventure and the next big thing on the calendar and the next big project and the next big, but it's what you talk about too, it's like following the moon cycles and just giving yourself that moment to rest when you need to rest and rest with the question of that and sit with and just sit with the possibility of it. There's nothing to do in the question, right? It's just
And I love, I mean, what you've shared is, and for folks who don't have this in hand yet, that there are a bunch of journaling pages and worksheet pages for you to to not just take Jenn's story and her lessons, but an opportunity for you to integrate and apply them and explore them for yourselves. Um, one of the connections I see is the lives we're living are the result of all of our choices. We got ourselves here one way or another. And and that is frustrating because sometimes it's just easier to say, it's not my fault, I didn't do it. But on the other hand, when it comes to, I do want to influence the outcome of my future decisions, recognizing how very much we played into and are solely responsible for where we are, which means we can be solely responsible for the next thing, and then weigh those choices, whether they were felt accidental or felt happening to us, whatever that is, and just take a different, it's not pull yourself up by your big girl panties, but it's just owning and seeing how and where you're responsible for your own life so that you can guide it with the most of intention. And I love that effort. So.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's always one of the things that I want to inspire with people is, I mean, basically, if I could do this, you could do this, you know? And come stand on my shoulders and I'll help lift you higher. You know, like this isn't my win, but by me writing this story, maybe, and it's not even a win, right? Like maybe it's we just all lift each other up higher on the mountain. And I used that example in the Fierce Awakenings when we did the book launch, right? Like we're all standing on top of this mountain of great success that we just launched this book, but it's our turn now to throw the cord back down and bring the other women back up with us, you know, bring the other women up with us. So for the women who feel like they don't have courage, I hope they find something in this book. For the women who only charged out there as like Athenas and Artemis goddesses competing with the men all the time, and courage was the only way we could rise up. Let's soften that a little bit. Let's find a different version of it.
Now I'll meet you in the hammock.
Yeah. I can't wait to be in a hammock.
Right? I mean, and not just metaphorically, right?
Yeah. And just
Metaphorically and
enjoy that.
otherwise. Yeah. Um, what, if anything else, do you feel like you want to say in this moment for yourself, for a prospective reader? What last gift or thought or blessing do you want to bring?
Well, what came first to mind, and I'll just say it this way, is that my 30-year-old self is really hard on my 50-year-old self right now. I hear a lot in my head, you used to be able to do that. You used to be able to do that, and now you can't. And my 52-year-old self keeps turning back and saying, all the versions of me did this. And it got me to here, like, what else am I striving for? Like, I don't need to do what I did when I was 30. Thank you, 30-year-old self, for making those amazing choices that you made in the moments you made them. Because if I didn't make those choices in my 30s, I wouldn't have walked 2 continents in my 40s, and I wouldn't have written this book in my 50s, right? It's all an accumulation of a lot of things. But I think it's that, like, we need to stop being so hard on ourselves with everything. Like, we get enough pressure outside of us bearing down on us. The different versions of ourselves, who we were and who we are now, like, I think that's been one of my most important lessons from this, is that I could look back on those versions of myself and celebrate each decade of that and say, this is all of who I am. And I still don't even know who I'm becoming. Like, I'm still evolving. I'm still evolving.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun to remember.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. An example that comes up a lot in our audience is when your book hits bestseller. It's already #1 new release. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's really exciting.
When it hits bestseller, it won't hold that position forever. That
Right.
doesn't diminish the accomplishment the same way you run a marathon. you've always run that marathon. You
Right.
graduate, you earn a degree, the degree is always yours. Um, you do not need to run a marathon every day to have the benefit or the validation or the qualification that I did the thing. Um, and and overachieving is definitely contagious. And I love watching as all humans, but women especially, grow into themselves in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and all of the things that I watch them shed and give themselves permission to not give two tits about. Just like that's not my, that expectation is no longer mine from anyone to impose upon myself or even for me to drag along with me. Don't care. It's not my thing. Watch me be me. Um, and it reminds me of Clarissa Pinkola Estes is The Dangerous Old Woman. One
Hmm.
doesn't care. You
Yeah.
don't get to control me or tell me how, or this is me. Watch out or deal with it or whatever. And I think that's dangerous and terrifying for a lot of people and so wonderful.
Yeah. And I think it's well, and it's in the last part of the book, right? This graffiti that I walk by every day. And it's about violence against women. But the phrase is, I don't want to be brave. I want to be free. And I
Yeah.
think I always pause when I see that because it's like, I don't always need to be brave, right? I just want to
Yeah.
be who I want to be. And
What if we lived in a world that didn't require our constant bravery?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's what we're all trying to figure out is how to be more of who we are and how we can more freely be who we are
Yeah.
without the kind of shackles that we tie ourselves to. So,
So, thank you again for joining us, for sharing, for being in the muck and sitting with that discomfort and long enough for others to benefit. It's a beautiful gift that you have shared with the world. So, uh,
thank you for helping me bring that to life, Sierra. I couldn't have done it without you and the Red Thread team. So,
always my pleasure. This is our 55th book.
I just happen to love that.
It's
I'm
a
the 55th.
good
That's like an
number.
angel number about like spiritual growth or something.
It's
So
a really good number. Yeah.
I'd say I like that it's, well, of course I would. I like that
I hope
synchronicity.
you like it because it's sticking. It's
Yeah.
um,
Even if it was 57, I would love that.
um, how are you going to mark today and Tuesday, both of which are really sort of significant launch days? How are you treating yourself, acknowledging, or even just giving yourself permission to be exhausted and ridiculous today so you can be something else later?
I am quite exhausted. It's been quite a journey on this month of doing this. Tonight, I am going to have a glass of sparkling local wine with some
Fabulous.
friends that are in town.
Nice.
And tomorrow, I'm going to see a Bruce Springsteen concert in Barcelona.
Wow. There you go.
I will post one thing this
Yeah.
week about the book, and then on Tuesday, it will be another moment, and then that's it. And then I'm going to enjoy summer. I'm going on summer hours too,
Great.
kind of
Yeah.
like the book's out. There'll be momentum for a
And you
while.
have events scheduled
Oh,
throughout
we
the
do.
United States and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, the virtual
Not
one is
dropping the
on
baby. Yeah.
no, June 27th. Luis and I are hosting two sessions actually
Nice.
about it's a documentary screening and a book reading and then a Q&A. So that's the big thing coming up virtually. And then yeah, I'm going back to the US and hoping to have some book things and documentary things and
Yeah.
swim in a pool and
Oh, I love it.
have
Okay.
ice cream.
Right? Um, this is always just an amazing moment. The culmination, which is neither end or beginning, but it is certainly a significant moment in the creation process. And so I always just like to really intentionally give a bow. So congratulations,
Thank
dear
you.
author.
Look, I am gonna give myself and you stars.
There you go. There you go.
Look,
Um,
as you're the only one with the hardcover book at this
yeah.
moment.
And the hardcover's gorgeous, by the
I
way.
know, it looks so nice.
Legend.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have mine soon.
Yep. No, it's beautiful.
Oh,
The map in the back and everything. It's gorgeous. So,
yeah, thank
um,
you.
congratulations, my dear friend.
For like precision on getting this all done too is really admirable.
Yes. My
Thank you.
pleasure. I love a final detail.
I certainly do too.
Yes, you do. Cheers to that. All right. Well, congratulations, and
Thank
I will
you.
let you go, and I'll talk
Well,
to you.
congratulations to you too. The 55th book
Thank
out in
you.
the world. So
Thank
congratulations
you.
to you.
Sure.
Thank you.